Hi, everybody. I am Shayna Weber, and this is the Emerging Screenwriters Interview Series. Today, we are talking to Marcus Stricklin. Hi, Marcus.
Hello,
How are
how
you?
are you? I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. Where are you in the world? Are you LA or are you somewhere else?
I'm in Burbank.
Oh, LA.
Yeah, yeah, LA. We'll just say LA.
Beautiful, beautiful Burbank, as they say
Yes,
in what don't they say that on The Price is Right or something like that? Like in
yes, they do.
Burbank, beautiful
Yeah,
Burbank. We were always like as kids, like, oh,
yeah.
Burbank, I
Uh,
want to go to
yeah.
Burbank.
That's one of the reasons why I wanted to move here, but I've never been on The Price is Right.
Really?
Yeah, I
I
should
haven't
try
either. I
someday.
don't know why I
Yeah.
was like, really? As if I've been on The Price is Right. I lived right by there, so I feel like I saw it all the time, and
All
like
the time.
friends have been on it. But yeah, you should go. Get
I
on
should,
there.
I'm gonna try it someday.
All right. If anyone can get the hookup for Marcus, let's get him on The Price is Right. Okay, so first we're gonna start off with just a couple easy questions to kind of get into it. What are you watching right now?
Right now, I'm watching Ted Lasso.
Okay.
I'm loving the new season so far, and we're also watching the big what's that show called? It's on the big it's a scripted show on Apple TV called The Big Door Prize.
Oh, I've
And
never
so
even
like
heard of that.
it's really good. So that there's this machine that appears in this grocery store and people go in and it tells you what your life potential is supposed to be.
Oh, wow.
And so people are like scrambling to figure out what they're like if this is right, if this is wrong. So it's actually a really, really good show.
Wow, I will check it out. I was just talking to someone else and we were talking about, have you seen Beef yet?
Yes. Oh my
Oh my
God.
God.
That's
I
another
watched the
show that I'm
pilot
watching.
and I'm like,
It's so intense.
I know. Can't wait to watch some more. Oh my
Yeah.
God. And then who are your industry heroes? Who do you look up to? Who do you want to work with?
People I want to work like who's some of my heroes currently. I'm in a writers program with Amy Annie Obi of Insecure.
Mm,
So she's one of my heroes. I love everything she does from writing to her directing work is unbelievably amazing. Some of my other heroes, I love Anthony King. He is on Apple TV's After Party season 1 and 2. He was
hmm
on let's see, he's written for was that some really big, amazing shows. God, I can't even, I'm blanking on like all of the stuff, but he's really amazing. He's a writer, producer, and he just had a show on Broadway. He wrote the Beetlejuice, um, on
Oh,
Broadway. So he's a really amazing. I love Gloria Calderon Kellett. I think she's just
hmm
phenomenal, top to bottom. And my one of my favorite people is Michael Shore. I love everything that he does. Like I love all his shows. I watch The Good Place probably once or twice a month, all the way through.
wow. Once or twice a month?
Yeah,
You just are
I
like,
love that show. When I'm writing, I put it on, so it's usually just on when I'm writing.
oh, we'll talk about that. We'll talk about your writing process in a minute.
Yes.
Let's get into it. Let's talk about you and your we like to call it the origin story. What is your
Okay.
origin story? How did you become a storyteller? What sort of pulled you into this world?
So about 4 years ago, I was a stay-at-home dad. I was a stay-at-home dad for 6 years, 7 years. But at that point, it was about halfway through my stay-at-home dad cycle. So it was about 3 years in, and I had cancer before, about 10 years ago, and I thought I was getting ready to go through another bout. I had this surgery to remove a biopsy, and while I was on like getting ready to go into like the room, I like the surgical room, I had like this thought. I was talking to my wife about like our kids, about how they're so attached to like their technology and like they wouldn't survive in like the 80s of the time period that we grew up in. And so as I came out, I was like, you know what? I watch so much TV. I think I want to try writing. So this was 2019. This was October 2019. So during that time, I was like picking up kids and stuff. I always would read scripts, and I'm basically self-taught. I was living in Arizona at the time. I would read scripts every morning and then try and like write. So I decided to try and write a pilot, and I wrote a pilot, And that pilot, my very first pilot, actually got optioned to BET um, about a little less than a year later. So that's really my origin
Wow.
story. I thought that I could do it, so I tried to write a pilot, and I've gotten to this BET contest for comedy writers,
Hmm.
and I was one of the 5 finalists for it, and they still I didn't win, but they optioned my pilot anyway.
Wow, that is that's amazing. I mean, I think that it's like, how do you continue in that in like how do you continue that um amazing first right out of the gate success? How do you continue that, or did it, or have you been able to?
I believe I've been able to.
Hmm.
I got a manager, and I would like write a little bit after that. So about a year after I committed to writing, I got a manager, which, my manager didn't work out. Like I'm currently
Sure.
managerless. And that was by choice. I left my manager last year. But like I met a few showrunners. I started doing like, Twitter. I would reach out to people and just connect with people and talk with people and go to like all sorts of like, different events. And this was like right before, like
Yeah.
right before the pandemic started. So this was like March 2020, but I would still reach out to showrunners and stuff and just try to meet them. So it was a very slow year in 2020, but like right after my pilot got option. So then I started talking to showrunners, and they would ask to read samples, and I actually was able to interview for a couple of TV shows, like staff shows, but I didn't get
Hmm.
those. So, but it was just the idea of, I had a year into this, I'm like already doing like staff interviews, which was
Right.
really cool to me, because it was like, for the longest time I was like, how do I get into that door? So I just reaching out to people and just talking to them and finding out about them was actually a very helpful way to get to know people. So, and they were very helpful. I still talk to some of the showrunners. I try to reach out to them monthly.
Hmm.
Email, just not a, hey, do you have a job for me? More of,
Right.
hey, how's life? How's it going? How's your wife? How's your kids? How's your dog? Stuff like that, to
Right.
stay in touch and not to lean on them for work, but to let them know kind of that I'm still here, but also really to keep that line of communication open.
I find it fascinating that you are somebody who just was able to, reach out to people. I think that for a lot of writers who are introverted and are maybe feeling like, oh, I can't just reach out to somebody. Why, how, and like, how did you do that? Did you just be like, okay, I guess this is what I'm going to try, and it worked, so you continue to do it? But like, I think a lot of people will probably lean into, when you say, I just reached out, they're like, how did you do that?
So during the 2020, like the summer of 2020, George Floyd and everything, there was a lot of like people who wanted to try and help Black writers in the beginning of the summer. And I mean, honestly, it's kind of waned off. Like, that has waned off, and that's fine, but I've kept the communication open with people that I met. So a lot of people, I would reply to emails, or they'd be like, hey, we want to meet X kind of writer. So I'd be like, hey, I'm that
I
kind of
am.
writer. I
Right.
would like to, meet you. Even if it's just a general meeting. I'm not, like, they were like, well, we're not looking for staffing. We just want to know who's out there. So anytime I set my phone for alerts, any word that popped up
Mm,
for something like that, middle of the night, I'm like, oh my God, this person did this. I'll get up and I'll respond like, hey, I'd really like to meet you. Can we meet for a virtual coffee? Can we have a chat? Can we set up a Zoom and talk for 10, 15
right.
minutes? And I think one of the ways, like, and I still do it now, and not just showrunners, I go on Twitter and I see the people in the script writing Twitter. And
Hmm.
if they're new, or if they're just people that are working on shows, I DM them like, hey, I'm still trying to break in. I'm not looking for like a handout, but I just want to meet you, talk to you, see how the process is for you, get some pointers, and really just connect with other writers. And 9 times out of 10, I've had people be like, hey, that's great. Yeah, let's do this. Let's meet for coffee. So
Hmm.
I've probably met in the last 3 years, probably about 150 people off of Twitter via Zoom. Some people I've met in person for coffee. just for,
Wow.
just because they want to. And I'm like, yeah, I feel like it's like if the worst thing people can say is no.
Right.
I don't want to. I don't feel comfortable doing that. So I think you just have to take a risk. I've met
Mm-hmm.
people through like joining writers groups, like really
Mm-hmm.
like people that are like now like staffed, people that are gone through the Warner Brothers directing program. I've met lots of people through these programs and writers groups by just saying, "Hey, I just want to talk to you outside of the group. I want to do this," and people are more receptive. Like I feel like to me, like I'm able to like really get to know someone by reading their work. So like I offer
Right.
to read work.
Mm.
I offer to give notes. Like, hey, in exchange for your time, I'd be happy to read anything you have, and give you notes. And
Mm-hmm.
people are love that. Like I think because a lot of time we all pay for coverage. And
Mm-hmm.
I feel comfortable enough to give someone notes on something. I think I understand story and dialogue enough to give them notes. And I always tell them like, if my note's stupid, tell me. If it's not, if it's helpful,
Right.
I hope it helps. So people are more receptive to, like, if they know there's something in it for them, or if they just want to be kind. I found that a lot of people really just want to connect with other writers as well.
Well, I mean, just from talking to you for a couple minutes, you come across as very genuine and authentic. And I think
Thank you.
that that's a really refreshing, you know,
Yeah,
that's
thank you.
refreshing in this industry of people who are all about like me, 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 me. I think it's really lovely. So I would, like I totally understand why somebody would be like, yes, Marcus, I will have a Zoom coffee with you.
Thank you.
I will give you a job eventually when I have one for you.
Please.
What kind of stories do you write? What's your genre or genres? What do you gravitate towards in terms of story?
I typically lean toward comedy. Comedy is like my thing. I find a lot of the time, like me and my wife, we have a blended family. Like we
Hmm.
have 5 children combined between the both of us. So I find a lot of my humor comes from my kids and not necessarily like things that we find ourselves in situations or conversations or some
Hmm.
little joke or something. But I also I'm one of the people who I like to people watch. So
Yeah.
I like to take note of people. So I like to write comedies about like family. Found family is something that I really, really gravitate towards. I love like
Mm,
Ghosts, for example, is one of my favorite TV shows, and Grand
yeah.
Crew. And Grand Crew because you have the people um, who are like from different backgrounds who somehow come together to have this like sorted type family. And I
Right.
love stories like that.
And then what's your ultimate goal in terms of do you want to write for television? Do you want to do film? Do you want to do both? Let's say like, what's your 1 year goal, 5 year goal, ultimate, like
Oh,
top of
okay.
the,
Well, my 1 year goal, and that is like very immediate, and I don't know. I think staffing is going to be very tricky this year, especially with the potential writer's strike. But my immediate goal this year is what I've been pushing all of my energy toward this year is to get into Paramount Writers Program. That is
okay.
my 100% goal. I have since December, I've probably spent more time working on my spec. But tomorrow's my like 4/14 is my date that I'm actually submitting. I've gotten tons of
Mm,
notes on my spec. I've rewritten it. I am like ready to go. So tomorrow's my submission day, but that's my 1 year goal is to be in Paramount Writers Program, like submit and get in. But I also at this time next year I'm hoping to be staffed, if
right.
that makes sense. And then
Hmm.
within 5 years, I'd like to shoot a short film. I'd like to
Hmm.
direct a short film. That I actually wrote one this year that I'm leaning towards directing this summer, um, and I'd like to eventually move up to features. I don't want to be a showrunner. I think that's a lot of
Hmm.
like responsibility that I don't want to have, but I'd love to be a staff
Right.
writer and eventually move on to also directing TV shows. I've asked, I'm in a
Hmm.
mentorship now, and I told him this year I would like if there's any way we could find somebody that I could shadow for TV, I think that would be great. So that's my goal
Yeah.
is to be staffed in the year, be in Paramount, and shadow a TV director.
Because you are entering the Paramount program. Um, why do you think fellowships and these writing programs and and these types of mentorship opportunities and, like working with current writers and things like that. Why do you think these programs, what draws you towards them, or what do you think is beneficial? And is that something that you've learned from talking to a bunch of different people, or have you seen that success?
It eliminates the noise of trying to break through. Like I feel that there's so many avenues into getting into being a TV writer. You know somebody, you have a lucky break where someone likes your TV, like your TV show, and they staff you. I feel that with the like a particular writers program such as Paramount, they work like I've reached out to people who have been in the program. I'm in a writers group with someone who went through the program about 4 years ago, and the success that they've been able to build in their career of getting staffed and meeting mentors and people who are pushing them to get staffed, I feel is like unparalleled in like many other areas of like this industry. Like, you know, they look to help you sustain success. Um,
Mm-hmm.
throughout your career, not just, for that 1 year you're in the program. Like my friend, she told me that, yeah, I got, once my show ended on, she was staffed on the CBS show. Once that show ended, they were knocking that within the next day. They were like, hey, this is what we want to try and get you into next. Like, what, how do you feel about this show? And so even now, she's been out of the program for 4 years, and she says they still reach out and say, how can we help you? And that's what I think is
Amazing.
important, and especially in this industry for new writers, is to try and sustain so you can build a career and you're not just
Right.
wondering what's going to happen from week to week or room to room, because a lot of these rooms, they're either mini rooms or they're just not sustainable in like the current TV market because the shows are yanked so quickly at some point.
Right.
So
I love what you said that you didn't want to be a showrunner, and it made me kind of laugh because I like you're already a parent to kids,
yeah.
so it's like you don't want to be another parent to a bunch of kids. And it made me think of just being a parent also. How do you think being a stay-at-home dad for that amount of time, or just in general being a parent, having a family, how do you think that helps you in your writing or storytelling?
I feel that a lot of my time is like writing to me is like structure. Like, when you're parenting, a lot of it is structure. A lot of it
Hmm.
is discipline. And I don't mean like discipline like, oh, you've been
Yeah.
bad. No, I meant like discipline of like sitting down and like studying and like focusing and on like a certain
Hmm.
time. So being a stay-at-home parent has helped me like in my writing, it's helped me focus on like specific goals. Like I
Mm.
can't focus on more than one thing at once. Like in the beginning, I was trying to write, I'd start on one TV show or something, and then I'd be like, oh, I'm stuck. I'm gonna move to something else, and I jump back to this. Like, no, like I think it's helped me to be more disciplined to see something through to the end
Mm.
and then move to something else. And it's some of the things like I talk to my kids about, like when you start something, you finish it. Like
Right.
you're not going to start softball this week and be like, oh, I don't like softball. No, see it through to the end because you don't know if you're going to like it. So
Right.
a lot of the stuff that I try and tell my kids, I try to incorporate into like my writing. I have to be disciplined. I get up in the morning like when everybody's still sleeping, and I try and focus on that early morning like writing sprint in my brain. And that way I can spend time with them in the morning before
Hmm.
school and then come back to writing. So I try and be disciplined. Like I'm learning that discipline of being like like a very
Yeah.
scheduled writer. I feel like I know my best times of the day where I feel refreshed and ready to write.
I love that. I feel the same way. Like when I became a parent, I learned how it was a struggle, but learning how to put, like, I have this amount of time. So if I
Mhm.
don't use that time wisely, it's going to be wasted because I only have this amount and then I got to
Yeah.
go do this and I can come back here. But yeah, I love that. So let's shift gears a little bit and talk about, since ISA is a sponsor of this Emerging Screenwriters interview series, will you just talk a little bit about how you were introduced to the ISA, how you became involved, and then how they have helped you or motivated you, or any ways that they have that you've utilized our services.
In the end of what year is this? 2023 at the end of 20, and 2021 at the end of 2021, I won. I was one of the three winners for the ISA diversity, um, which was to me was great
Hmm.
because they chose the way they did that. They used submit like five of your up to five of your scripts, and I submitted a feature and two pilots. And my feature actually won, which was about my cancer journey. I was
Mm.
long story short, I went through cancer alone. I was very stupid. I met a friend during this market. We were both going through cancer alone, like our treatment and stuff. And I wrote about that. I wrote about our friendship that blossomed during that time when we were both stupid and decided to go through cancer together, our treatment together. And so I won that, and then I was invited onto the diversity, not the diversity slate, the
Development slate.
what's the development slate, which
Hmm.
was amazing. And then I was named one of the top 25 writers to watch for 2022.
Okay.
And just to me, it just gave me like this boost of like, like I felt, but I still feel it. Like every time, like it's still in my bios for all of my my socials. I'm like, I was top 25 last year. So it's just giving me this boost that every time I apply for something or I you know that I'm like writing, like I feel like of all like it just giving me confidence that I can continue to grow and become a better writer. And I
Right.
feel like, I don't sit down or write anything without thinking about like the struggles that I've had over
Mm.
like the last 4+ years of writing and the rejections. But then I think about like this, I think about the ISA and how they've helped me, whether it, and I have not gotten anything out of that, like as far as I didn't get like meetings or anything, but it to me it gave me like a confidence boost.
Right.
And to me that's like the really like the biggest thing because this industry there are a lot of highs and lows. And right now I've been riding that high from the ISA of like just knowing that I can write. Like I set my mind to a goal a couple
Hmm.
years ago, and that was just like some validation that like I'm on the right track of like
Right.
writing. And it was like in a time where that month, I won three contests in like a month. Like it was really, really bizarre. Like so a
You're like,
feature
I
and a
can do
TV.
this.
I can do this.
I'm
But that
good.
was just like, yeah,
Yeah.
that was just like the cherry on the top because it was like the end of the year that I thought was like a really long, like 2021,
Yeah.
2021 to me was like really long year. So it was just, winning a short competition, a feature competition, and then a TV pilot competition. I won a WarnerMedia award for a TV pilot that I wrote based off of imaginary friends within that same span. So it was just a lot of like I felt like it was just like the cherry on top of like I'm on
Right.
the right track to building a career in the future.
Right. So you said that you didn't start writing until like 2019.
Yeah.
Were you ever writing things more like hobby wise when you were younger, or was this something that just you were like, I'm going to try this and then you're good at it?
I dabbled in it like I
Okay.
wanted to like I had the strict parents growing up of art doesn't pay the bills, TV writing
Right.
does. You're going to go to business school. So I listened to my parents. I went to business school. I worked at a bank for 10 years and I decided I don't like it, so I quit. And and then life happened, and then so I decided to come back to writing. Like writing has always been my first love. Like I thought I could really, if I studied, if I was living in Arizona at the time, and I was still a stay-at-home dad, but once a week for like 3 months, I was flying out to California to take writing classes,
Mm.
and then flying home the next morning. So for a while, like a TV writing class, and so I just bet on myself that I could do this, and I'm still betting on myself every week. Every day I get up and say I can do this. I have this specific goals in mind that I want to achieve, and like I feel like you just have to bet on yourself. Like you just have to like
Mhm.
really like hunker down and like if you want to do it, you have to do it.
What's your favorite thing about sitting down and writing a story? Is it like the beginning of the story? Is it coming up with it? Is it writing the ending? What's your favorite part about the process itself?
The snacks for sure. No, just
The breaks.
I mean, like seriously, I am a candy aficionado. Look at, I mean, my wife bought me
Oh.
this gigantic bag. But no, I think my favorite part is possibly dialogue. Like I like
Mm,
writing like dialogue that specifically for TV shows that of like how people talk. So I like coming up with like listening to people and like
mhm.
coming up with new ways to say things or fun ways to say something that, could be catchy or poignant. Like I feel like a lot of the time, um, most of my time writing is like, well, I feel that line could be better. I say that to myself a lot.
Sure.
Like I know this line could be better, and I'll even mark it like, oh, I wasn't good. Like that's just a filler. So I like writing dialogue. I like writing. I like um I like seeing where my characters go. Sometimes like I'll sit down to write and I'll have an outline, but I like seeing like what my characters do based off of how I'm feeling at that particular moment.
Right. And like coming up with that new thing that happens that you weren't
Yeah,
expecting. Yeah,
yeah,
those are
yeah,
like the moments that you just go like, "Oh my God, I did not
yeah.
know my character would do that." And just yeah,
And,
I have some of
and
those
then
where I'm like,
and then when that happens, like I feel like I'm on like a high because I'm like, oh my God,
yeah,
I can't believe my character did this and
yeah,
stuff. So yes, I get it. You get it.
yeah, I get it. What's the best advice that you've ever received from your many Twitter Zooms or advice that you share with writers who are starting out or writers that you meet?
Tell the story only way you can.
Mm,
Like there are a lot of like, people will tell me that a lot of, like people will come up with stories and they're like, oh, we've seen that story before. We've seen
sure.
that story. We've seen them. And so I'm like, but how is it different? How is your voice going to make it different? How is my voice going to make it different? And
Right.
so a few of my mentors that I've had conversations with, they tell me that it's like write only a story that you can tell. Write it the way you can write it. Use your voice that you've been developing to write that story in that particular way, but only you can write it. So, find your niche, in your writing, which to me is just dramatic humor. Like I like to write humor with some really dramatic like stuff. So I like to, they just said find that niche, find something that you can write and really write the heck out of it. Don't be apologetic about it. Just write it the way you want to write it.
I love that. That's some great advice because yeah, there's stories about everything, but there's not your
Mhm.
story about that. So
Yeah.
that's some great
Yeah,
advice. I
and
love that.
someone told us like that, well, every story's already been told. I'm like, I don't think that's necessarily true because
Right.
there's 8 billion people in the world. There's gonna bound to be some stories that are the same, but they're told differently.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. That's some great advice. I love that. So if you're feeling down, you can write it your way.
Yes.
Okay, so we're gonna finish this up with some fun, a couple just fun like inside the actor's studio type questions. What's your favorite word?
My favorite word is
Snacks.
snacks is a good one. Palindrome is my favorite word. And that means it's a word that reads back and forth
Right.
or a number. So that's my favorite word.
Why?
I don't know. I just I don't know. I
So
really don't know.
random.
Like I think when I was a kid I saw like stuff that would, like numbers or something that would go back and forth and I thought it was just I looked it up one day. I was like, wow, that's actually a cool word. That's like
Hmm.
really neat. So it's just kind of stuck with me. It's just my favorite word.
And what's the word that you dislike? What's a word that you don't like?
Um, I don't know. I don't know. I don't.
Okay. You're like, I don't
Okay,
want
my
to
kids,
say it because I don't like it.
my kids brought it up the other day. I was like, I don't particularly hate any words, but I hate words that people abbreviate that shouldn't be abbreviated.
Oh yes, like what? Like
Um,
sus?
yes,
That's
any one of
sus.
those. Yes, stuff like that. Like, what? If I have to look it up what it is, then I already hate
Fair enough. And then what's the grammar or the spelling error that annoys you the most?
What word is it that I cannot spell correctly to if my life depended on it? There's one word and I cannot think of it, but it's almost definite. I always put,
Definite.
yes, that I always put DEFEN.
Oh,
ITE, and then
and you're
but it always gets me, and it's like a little red line comes out. I'm like, I know, okay, I know, but
like,
I hate trying to spell definite.
now next time I write that, I'm gonna think of you. All right. Well, thank you so much, Marcus, for chatting with us. And
Thank
I
you.
feel like I learned a lot about you. If you would like to have a Zoom conversation with Marcus, go ahead and reach out to him on Twitter.
Please do. Marcus the Token.
All right. Bye, everybody.